Minnesota Association of Library Friends presents Friends of the Library 101. We'll start with some basics. What are Friends of the Library? In truth, it's hard to craft a one-size-fits-all answer. How friends look and what they do are often molded by the profile and pressing needs of the community and library they serve. This adaptability is a trait of Friends' work we'll delve more into later. However, the following usually hold true. Friends are 501c3 incorporated nonprofit entities, registered with the IRS and operating under the guidelines of the Minnesota Secretary of State. Most are public charities, but some are officially classed as private foundations. Those distinctions are of secondary importance. The takeaway is that Friends' contributions are tax exempt. Hand in hand with this charity status, always remember that Friends are legally separate from the library they support. Why does it matter? Our libraries are, of course, public institutions. As such, their funding, spending, and a host of other considerations are limited somewhat by statute and city or county governing bodies. Friends pursue allied work, but do not have the same red tape. This can be a real blessing for a library director. Third, Friends are volunteers. Well over 100 Friends groups are going strong in Minnesota today. Only a small handful, St. Paul, Hennepin, Ramsey County, Duluth, have any paid staff at all. This means, among other things, that Friends operate on pretty lean overhead. The majority of what they fundraise goes straight to the library's priorities. Friends are membership organizations. Dues are usually assessed annually, and they are rarely high. By and large, membership is understood as a way to keep tabs on a community's most ardent library lovers and to make them feel a part of something. Individual donations and other fundraising activities always supplement a Friends group's annual dues revenue, and in most cases, greatly exceed it. What do Friends do? From a close read of the previous slide, you can probably connect some of the dots yourself. However, I want to underscore how multi-dimensional Friends of the Library are. We'll lay it out as 4 areas and address each in turn. As city departments or county-funded entities, public libraries are somewhat limited in their ability to raise funds from corporate and individual donors. Friends, as public charities, have greater ability to collect private dollars and more flexibility in terms of dispersal. Friends' revenue routinely funds new furniture, landscaping, special speakers, summer reading materials, and other nice-to-have investments that the library's base budget simply cannot stretch to purchase. Let's talk about the most common mechanisms for Friends fundraising. It's a common misconception that Friends coordinate book sales and that this is their only activity of note. True enough, in some communities, it is the most visible thing that Friends do, and one that continues to generate great excitement by bibliophiles. Book sales inventory comes from community donations and from the library's own discards. Depending on the scale of collection development and weeding, sales can be annual, biannual, or even more frequent. Sticker prices are not exorbitant. Nothing is more than $5, and $1 is perhaps the most common price point. However, since the books cost the Friends nothing, and the man hours are all put in by volunteers, these sales can raise hefty revenue. Why save the fund for once or twice a year? In select cases where space allows and the relationship with the library administration is strong, Friends actually maintain a year-round bookstore presence on site. Examples in Minnesota include Rochester and St. Cloud. Maplewood Public Library in suburban Ramsey County raises $16,000 to $20,000 a year in this way. Friends are also increasingly finding a wider audience for their wares online. COVID and the abrupt halt to in-person book sales expedited this existing trend greatly. Just like about all charities, Friends conduct donation solicitation campaigns. Give to the Max Day in November and year-end appeals season in December are common times for these mailings or email campaigns to go out. Because of the unique nature of Friends, the American Library Association's annual National Library Week in April, National Library Legislative Day in the summer, and National Friends of Libraries Week in October are nice opportunities to get the word out with less competition. Auctions, ticketed author programs, galas, or happenings that blend two or more of those fundraising activities add pizzazz and community cachet to Friends' work. Friends of Hennepin County Library's Pen Pal series and the St. Paul Friends Opus and Olives Dinner Gala bring nationally renowned writers to the Twin Cities. But size isn't everything. One of the most impressive fundraiser events MALF has seen in recent memory was put on by the local Friends in Elmore, a farm town of 600 on the Iowa border. Elmore has no grocery store, no bank, and little commercial activity to speak of, but still managed to coordinate a gangbusters gift basket silent auction sale that drew in sponsors and bidders from across Faribault County and beyond. Every so often, a library and the county or city that funds it must make provision for an investment beyond the usual. New building construction or facility additions are the best and most exciting example. However, more mundane things like costly HVAC repairs can also require strategic, concerted, larger scale fundraising. For big ticket investments like these, financial support from the private sector must almost always supplement the tax contributions that the governing body in charge are willing to put forward. This is not an entirely new concept. A century ago, when philanthropist Andrew Carnegie made his famous 2,500 plus gifts of new library buildings to communities across the country, a key prerequisite was that each recipient community marshal additional funds from the local private sector. As a much more recent case in point, let's look at the Ely Public Library. Located at the head of Boundary Waters and home to fewer than 4,000, Ely built a brand new $1.3 million library facility in 2014. Less than $500,000 of that price tag came from local government and a state grant. The Friends, at the head of a coalition that also involved the local Rotary, raised a significant remainder, approximately $800,000. Naturally, fundraising dollars can only supplement and can never supplant a base budget comprised of public dollars. As is likely already apparent to you, even as students, most libraries operate on a tight budget. When they come, budget cuts can severely compromise a library and its value proposition. In communities blessed with a strong Friends group, this organization can function as the community's mouthpiece, making sure public officials know the library is valued, used, and vital. Arguably, Friends actually make better advocates for a library and its budget than do librarians. After all, staff's very livelihood rides on budgetary decision-making, making their voices somewhat biased to the savvy board and council members who hold the purse strings. The Friends of St. Paul Public Library offers an illustrative case study. COVID is hitting city budgets hard across the country. In December 2020, the new city budget put forward by Mayor Carter included a host of regrettably necessary budget cuts. However, as originally modeled, the 2021 cutbacks would have disproportionately fallen on the library. In a matter of mere weeks, the Friends put together a multi-pronged advocacy campaign that saw thousands of support your library yard signs sprout in lawns across the city. Emails and calls flooded the offices of all 7 city wards council members. The Friends asked for a $450,000 reduction to the proposed cuts, not a wholesale reversal on those cuts, which would have been impractical under the circumstances. In the end, they secured $310,000 for the continuation of vital career lab services, $70,000 to expand hours of operation, and $17,000 for collection development. It's still going to be a rough 2021 for St. Paul Public Library, but this is a significant win nevertheless. Not all Friends events need to be fundraisers. Many groups also coordinate programs that supplement the free-to-attend programming put on by the library. Granted, not all Friends do this, but it can be invaluable support for library systems where budgetary restrictions or limited staff bandwidth severely curb what the library is able to do for their patrons without some outside support. Take, for example, the Friends of the Library up in Brainerd, Minnesota. When the pandemic hit and forced the cancellation of all the Brainerd Public Library's children's programming, the Friends stepped up by offering a daily surrogate children's story time on Facebook Live. Each reading had 200 to 1,200 hits in real time, a far bigger audience than in-person story times could ever generate, and a nice midday distraction for children and parents both. All told, between March 23rd and May 2nd, more than 70 story times racked up 27,800 total hits. Last but not least, it bears noting that in some libraries, Friends volunteer to take on low-level assignments, such as reshelving returned materials and sprucing up the hold shelves, which have a tendency to get untidy and no time flat. This volunteered library frees up paid library staff for patron interactions and more skilled tasks. As a specific case in point, we'd cite the small but mighty library in Cook, Minnesota. Located halfway between Duluth and the Canadian border, this small library has staff but leans on its friends to man the front desk and do nearly all of its formal community outreach. An even more extreme example is the entirely volunteer-run Marine Community Library in Marine on St. Croix, an operational model we see today only in a handful of the Midwest public libraries. Where does MALF come in? The Minnesota Association of Library Friends is a St. Paul-based private foundation, but truly statewide in scope and impact. Our mission is to help friends help their libraries. We have more than 100 institutional members who collectively boast a reach of 20,000 friends in Minnesota. In broad strokes, our work falls into 3 categories. Nearly every year sees some change to MALF's grants and awards portfolio. This is because we strive to keep our offerings well matched to the ever-evolving needs of Friends of the Library in Minnesota. Our flagship and most popular prizes include the Goss Nordley Startup Grant. This stipend is intended to defray the sometimes steep costs associated with getting a newly minted Friends group off and running. Our second longest running award, the Evie Nordley Award, recognizes innovative and otherwise outstanding Friends programming. A third complimentary member opportunity is the Olson Event and Programming Grant, which helps Friends finance promising programming on the front end. In recent years, MALF has also branched into honors that are non-monetary in nature, but reap dividends in other ways. Our favorite such initiative may be the Stand Up for Standout Friends program, which has honored nearly 75 movers and shakers since 2016. MALF is also proud of its programming portfolio. We invest time, energy, and money in educational programming tailored to make Friends of the Library better fundraisers, public advocates, marketers, and recruiters. Ordinarily, that means hands-on workshops held at co-hosting libraries all across the state. Last year, for obvious reasons, we reconceptualized those as online webinars. Also last year, MALF piloted its first standalone Friends conference, Saturday Splash. Here again, COVID forced significant change-up to the original plan, which would have culminated in a day-long Friends extravaganza at the beautiful Heritage Library in Lakeville. Our online surrogate, keynoted and emceed by New York Times bestselling author William Kent Kruger, drew a huge audience, far wider than we would have seen in an in-person happening. Last but not least, MALF serves its members as a clearinghouse for information. We cross-pollinate by sharing success stories and replicable ideas from our dynamic, statewide network of Friends of the Library. We also maintain a strong rapport with United for Libraries, the Friends arm of the American Library Association. Using this and other such connections, MALF shares best practices and emerging trends from the national scene, while also elevating Minnesota stories to national attention. If you'd like a taste of those communications, I welcome you to sign up for our free bi-weekly e-newsletter. You can do so and learn much more from MALF's website, mnlibraryfriends.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'd of course love to have you in the fold more officially as a member. MALF's dues structure is low, just $10 a year for individuals, and affords still further opportunities to learn about Friends of the Library and how their work intersects with those of professional librarians. Last, should you have any questions on anything you've heard in this recorded talk, don't hesitate to reach to our office using the information on the right. Our office manager will answer your questions, route to me, or forward to another board member as appropriate. Thank you for your time.